Hey, how are you? Welcome back to the glorious one and only Nick's Ramble ASMR, where your boy Nick rambles to you about different topics. They go from entertainment to positivity to healing to just good rambles. So feel free, as always, throw this on in the background. It's meant to relax you, but also it's kind of just gonna get into your little noggin and get you thinking about some stuff as well. I wanted to make a video about this because I literally just spent all of today and yesterday watching the Divergent series, which I don't know if you remember. It came out in the era of the Hunger Games in the 2010s. It actually came out, I have my laptop over here. It came out there's 3 movies out. There's Divergent, then there's the Insurgent, and then there's Allegiant. And I don't know if you know this, but they actually never finished the series. This came out in 2014, the first movie, and the last movie. So there's 3 books. Those 3 books, Divergent, Insurgent, and Allegiant. And the third book was going to be split into 2 parts, just like the Hunger Games. Do you remember how the Hunger Games, there was the first one, then there was Catching Fire, and then there was the Mockingjay, or whatever it's called. I'm not always the best with names or titles, but you know what I mean. There's part 1 and part 2. So that happened with this film, but they never filmed the last part, and we're going to talk about why. We're going to talk about what the story is and what the last section might have looked like. Obviously, if this intrigues you, watch it, but the reason I loved this series, I never read it, and I was doing some searching. There's a lot of differences from the books than the movies, but what I really liked about this movie series is that it reminded me, like when I first saw it as a kid in the 2010s, I thought it gave me elements of Avatar: The Last Airbender. But let me just give you the synopsis of what this story is about, so you can kind of get a gist of the world. We follow Beatrice, and as she grows up in this futuristic world where there's I'm gonna butcher stuff, but there's factors. There's factions. That's the word. Factions in the society, and there's all these different factions. Think of them as specialties. Okay, so this is what the factions are. So there's Dauntless, which is basically brave and courage, and they're the fighters of the city. So this all takes place in Chicago in the future, post-apocalyptic, and we're in this like confined city that has different factions that specialize in different things, and they're named Dauntless, and they're like the police. They're the soldiers. They're brave. They're courageous. They're free running. They're sprinting around. They're very give no craps. Then we have Amity, which is the faction for kindness. So they are the ones that are in the fields. They're like farmers. They're the ones that are, doing crops. Think of like your hippies. They're all about kindness and happiness, and that's the way they live. Carefree life off the land, basically. So they're your agricultural entities. Then we also have Erudite. I think that's how you say it, Erudite, which is the intelligence sector. So for anyone that's smart, they are in charge of. Oh no! What are they in charge of? Like medicine and anything intellect. They're your go-to. Technology. It's all of them. Then we have abnegation, which is selflessness. So in this factor, oh my god, I keep saying factor. This faction, they don't use use vanity. They have no mirrors. They're all about selflessness, and they are the ones that actually rule the government. They're all about helping other people, and they usually help this other section. So there's these 5 ones, and then there's the faction list, like your homeless that don't go into any factors. The faction lists aren't in any faction, and they're like the homeless. And abnegation helps those, and abnegation is where Beatrice starts. There's one other faction, and then I'm going to tell you the story, and the other faction is Candor, and Candor is all about honesty. They're in charge of the law, and they're in charge, I think so, right? Or is it Erudite's in charge of law? But Candor is all in charge of law. They're in charge of law and telling the truth and justice, basically. Now, when each person is in this faction, they are like specialized in that unique specialty. So, you know, as I said, Dauntless is bravery, Amity is kindness, Erudite is intelligence, abnegation is selflessness, and Candor is honesty. So someone from Candor would just speak openly, like whatever they have no filter, and someone from abnegation would not say anything at all and be very selfless. So that's the world we live in. Beatrice grows up in abnegation, and the way the story starts is she has a brother who actually is also let me see, what's his name, but he's also in his name's Caleb Pryor. So it's Beatrice Pryor and Caleb Pryor. And let me just tell you the casting. You're gonna find this really funny. But so Shailene Woodley plays our Beatrice, or also known as Triss. She changes her name later in the book. Spoiler in the film. And then we also have Ansel Elgort is her brother. Now some hot gossip for you. Do you remember in the early 2010s, do you remember this film called The Fault in Our Stars by John Green? You know what? You're my friend. It's okay, I'm messing all this up, but basically, yeah, no, that's right, John Green. I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes. Yes, it is. In that film, they're lovers. They're like a romantic interest, but in the Divergent, they're also their brother and sister, Shailene and Ansel, and it's funny. Like, I don't know if you remember this, but the Divergent series came out. Like, the first 2 films came out, and then right before the 3rd one, The Fault in Our Stars came out. So you saw it felt really weird seeing brother and sister in another film, like romantic leads. But anyways, we start the story where there is basically this what is it called? Basically they have to do a test, a placement test. Beatrice and Ansel, and it's protocol. And in this test, they basically are given a serum, and they're told what faction they belong to. Now, this test is always supposed to tell you something, and it's supposed to indicate where you want to be. Because what happens is there's like the picking. It's kind of like the Hunger Games and the reaping, but like days later, everyone gathers up, and I'm assuming they're like 18 or something. They're going into adulthood, and there's a ceremony where each child has to choose which faction they're gonna go into. They cut their hand with blood, and they put it over, and they immediately go to that faction. Now, the test will tell you where you should go, but you do have autonomy to choose whichever one you want. So that's the thing. Now, in fairness, I didn't write the book, but I almost wish there was no autonomy in it, because it I don't know. You'll see why. I wish I wish not anyone could have made the decision whatever they wanted, right? I wish it was more like the test told you where you're going, and then it was just shown in the ceremony where you're going. Because we follow Beatrice. Your typical girl in abnegation world. She's selfless, doesn't look at the mirror. She's very pretty. Shailene Woodley is very pretty. And she goes to this test, and at test, we learned, 95% of all people get recommended where they were brought up, which makes sense because, their community informed who they are currently. So she's expecting abnegation. However, when Beatrice takes the test, and the test is literally they sit in a chair and they get a serum, and they get a serum. I forget what the actual first test is, but they get a serum, and what happens is it's supposed to be very clear. Oh, I remember. It's supposed to be very clear what happens, and there's this like wolf. So she takes the serum, and then she hallucinates into this program thing, and there's these. She's looking in the mirror, and she's like very aware of what's happening. There's these wolves that look like they're gonna attack her, and she has to decide if she's gonna choose. And she hears from her mind, it's like, dude, choose a knife or choose meat. She doesn't choose either, and the wolf is about to attack her, and she goes to herself, this is not real, this isn't real, and she basically breaks out of this test, and the proctor looks at her weary, and she says, you must go immediately. I'm gonna tell. Sorry, it's loud. She says, I'm gonna tell, get out here, go down the back, tell your family, tell everyone that you were sick on this test, and tell them that you were sick, and that I sent you home early. I'm going to put you as abnegation. And she was like, wait, what was my test results? Was it abnegation? And she goes, no, you are divergent, hence the name. And she's like, what does that mean? She's like, you fit every single faction, so, and that's extremely rare. She says, choose, like, it's very dangerous, don't tell anyone that that's the case. And Beatrice says, what do I do? Like, Beatrice was like, I wanted an answer for my, ceremony. And she said, choose whatever you need to choose, just follow your gut, you can do this. And then Beatrice goes home. She tells no one. We learn that when the kids choose the faction, they have this model that says like faction over blood. So if they don't choose abnegation, they leave their family behind and they never interact ever again. The factions are separated. Remember that. So we get to the ceremony, and it's Ansel, it's Caleb and Beatrice, the brothers and sister. They're next to each other, and like I said, right, as we were told, it's really rare for anyone to choose anything else. Well, their names get called, and Caleb goes first, and Caleb chooses Eurydice, which is absurd. It's the really smart one. To the shock of his parents, there is a huge feud that's going down between Eurydice and abnegation. Eurydice is trying to take over abnegation, so the fact that he chose that, and his parents are like on the council on abnegation, is a huge deal. Beatrice goes up, she cuts her hand, she doesn't know what to do, right? She cuts her hand, the way you can indicate is like you could drop blood into one of the bowls, and she has her hand all over abnegation, and then at the last second she moves it left, and she chooses Dauntless. That's the brave one, the wild, the free, the running, and immediately she's whisked off. She sees her parents alone crying, and she can't even say goodbye. And then we begin. It's a really good story. I'm not going to recap probably the entire thing because it would be hours long, but what happens is it's so fun. This is the fun thing, especially if I've ever watched the first film. This, I wouldn't say timid, but the selfless, kind of reserved girl turns into a warrior. That is her whole first, second act, the fun of the games of the script. And basically the way we find out, oh my god, it's so good, but we find out, so basically they get on a train and they have to do all these tests and trials to prove their worth. If they don't make like the top 10 of the Dauntless initiatives, they become actionless. And throughout this process, people die, people succeed, and spoiler alert, she does end up making it to Dauntless. You need to watch it. It is crazy. They jump off trains. She jumps through a building on whim, and they fight, and it's just so good. She hits up a romance with one of the teachers, who they become a whole thing. But basically, the first movie's whole arc is that, oh my god, can I even remember what the whole arc of it is? Is that Eurydice basically tries to invade abnegation, and we learn through the process of what being a divergent means, because we still don't understand. All we know is that the head person of Eurydice is gunning and trying to murder all the divergents. And at first we're like, why does it matter? You could choose any faction, right? Like, why does it matter? Because any person could choose. What we learn that Beatrice has power for is all the initiatives and all the tests are all serums. When Beatrice is put into a serum, she is cognizantly aware that it is a test. That's not reality, and because of that, she can exit it really easily. This means that if there's ever, there's a couple things. In the books, apparently they use a truth serum on her. That doesn't work, but she decides to tell the truth anyways. Like, that's her thing. She can guys, but in the movie she does take this truth serum, and it looked, I watched it today, and I was like, oh, it looks like she doesn't want to tell the truth, and she's telling the truth. I was very shocked on how different the book, I didn't read the book, but like what I've heard about the book and the movie was, I was like, oh, I didn't realize films changed it that much. But basically, she becomes this badass warrior, and she falls in love with the teacher, and they fall in love, and basically everything in the first movie, at the end, she loses basically everyone that she loves, and the way that Eurydice kind of takes over abnegation is that they use syrups and gases to brainwash the Dauntless. Now, since she is divergent, even though she took the serum or got injected, I forget what happened, she wakes up and everyone's a zombie doing their own thing, and they're all like, we're soldiers now, we're gonna be walking. She falls into place, but she's lucid. We basically end that film. Oh, it's awesome. What's that trying to happen? The main villain from Eurydice is trying to take over abnegation and kill everyone in abnegation, and she storms in, stops her while fighting with the love of her life. They fall in love, and boom, everyone's saved. And that's movie one. I know I just totally, it's so long though, it's so good. And then the second movie is, what is the second movie? Can I even remember? Because I just watched them back to back. I had Chipotle. It was delicious. Oh, amazing. So the second movie is this. So Triss is on the run. So now everyone knows pretty much that she's divergent. And what happens is they escape on the train. They try and leave and go back to Dauntless. Dauntless is, the factions are basically not a thing anymore, and they basically say that what was happening in abnegation, how the villain I was talking about, well, she doesn't die at the end, she just gets injured and her whole plot fails. I'll say episode 2, but in movie 2, she ends up blaming Triss and I didn't even talk about 4. 4 is her love interest, the teacher. It's by Theo. Is it Theo James? Yeah, who's really, really attractive, y'all. Good stuff. Also, Kate Winslet was a villain in this movie. She's so good. Think of Titanic. Rose. But yeah, and movie 2 is basically Triss and Four and like their own posse. They're always together. It's basically them. What are they? Oh, basically the main villain finds a box at application. This happens at the beginning that Triss's mom was hiding, and the villain Kate Winslet character has this box, and she tries to round up all the Divergents, killing them, but also to open this box. This box can only be opened by a Divergent, because they have to go through all these tests, all the tests of all the different factions and pass it. So she's testing all these Divergents, gathering them all up. They keep dying. They keep not going through with the process, and this is a very, very short thing, but she ends up basically capturing Triss, not Trish, Triss. And along the way, there's a lot of betrayals from her brother. Her brother ends up going back to Eurydice, and betraying her. Triss, huge deal. We also, at the end of the first movie, Triss like ended up shooting. Remember I told you there were zombies, like all of her Dauntless. She had to kill one of her friends because of that, or both her parents died. It was a lot, and she's, traumatized. She has bad nightmares. She doesn't know who to trust except for Four. Four's always there, and Four, just so you know, the reason he's named Four is because he has only four fears. And they say in the first movie, probably book, but most people have around like 10 fears or even more. And what's interesting, oh my god, it was such a cool scene, you guys. Sorry, go back to the first movie, but they do, the last way to get into Dauntless is you have to do basically like face your fears serum. And you basically see, it's such a cool way to see the characters, what they fear and stuff. So it's cool because Triss like goes into Four's brain because he realizes she's a Divergent, that she will be found, and if found, killed, and he's like in love with her. So he's like, come in my brain and I'll show you my fears. And she's like, you really want me there? He's like, yeah, why not? And she's like, you don't like. She's like, it's so intimate. And he's like, I need to show you how you're supposed to win this. Because what happens is you can practice, and then there's like a ceremony where everyone watches, and your fears are on a screen, and you have to see how you deal with them. And the faster you deal with them, the more likely you are to stay in Dauntless, basically. But we learn, his fears. He's afraid of heights. He's afraid of being claustrophobic. Yeah. He's afraid of killing innocent people, and then he's also afraid his dad abused him. Fun fact, but I digress. Anyway, see, there's so much good character stuff. Second movie, Kate Winslet basically captures Triss. Triss does all of these tests to open the box, and when all seems lost, like she's gonna die, and they're all captured, we find out that the truth, so there's supposed to be a message, and the message says something like this. So the villain, Kate Winslet, is like, all Divergent people are bad. They're what is ruining our peace in our society because they can't follow rules, right? Well, this box basically opens up and the person says, congratulations, you may feel alone, but you are not Divergent. There are many of us outside. There's like walls in the city. We are outside. Come find us. All of this was made for you. You are a success, and you are the reason why society was created. So basically the whole antithesis of what the villain was trying to prove. So basically that happens. The villain, does the classic villains like kill them anyways, but then they get saved, and then we wake up in 3, and I'm missing a lot of characters, a lot of plot points. Like we meet 4's mom again. She becomes the leader. She's the leader of Factionless. There's like all this understory things, but it's so good. And movie 3, then it starts with basically it's Triss and her guy and group basically leaving the city and trying to find these people, and they do. And a new villain emerges, and let's say it would be like the capital, but basically we learn that the outside people, they're really advanced. They basically were trying to, so this is like in the future, so they were basically saying like in our time, 21st century, scientists figured out how to work the genome of genetics, and then eventually we started altering human beings to, excel in certain forms, hence erudite. Like you would choose your baby, it's like, oh, I want them to be really smart, so they'd be really smart or really brave or really kind. But when we did that, it eliminated, like, if you're really smart, you might not be compassionate. If you're really brave, you might not be kind. It ruined the balance, made everyone more divided, and caused more war. And basically they call these people, anyone that's been altered at all, damaged. Their genetic has been mutated. And what happened was that was in society, and then this group of people that are outside Chicago basically created the Chicago city, the different factions, because they tried to prove this thing that if you put them out, put them away from the real world, create their factions and let them live, that eventually they would reproduce and heal their genetic mutations, and eventually someone pure, aka divergent, would come, and that would be a pure human being. And their goal is to get pure human beings to basically create a whole other community again. So it was a huge deal when they found Triss. And Triss, this is what we learned in the 3rd movie. Triss wants to save her in Chicago. That this man, basically the leader of this place, is like, I'll help you, but we have to go to a consul and prove to them, and so let's do that. Triss believes this because Triss is a selfless person, hence abnegation, but badass. And she basically, 4 goes out into the world, and they're in love, right? They're like very much so, but he goes out into the wasteland with the other soldiers of this community, and he realizes they've been told that they've been, saving children, but what they've really been doing is kidnapping kids and then giving them a syrup so that they would not remember who they were. Ford tries to tell Triss this. Triss kind of like hears it out, but it's like, I want to do this with my man, the leader, because then it'll help people in Chicago. Well, she gets the council, and guess what? Triss is wrong. We learned, from the council, because they're like, Triss, you should talk, and she's like, we need to put an end to all this, and they're like, he has the power to do that. He's only here to get funding. And she was like, you son of a gun, wasted all my time, all my months, or whatever, and you could have fixed Chicago, but no, you wanted to use me to get more funding, you asshole. So she ends up going back to Chicago, as they do, like tiptoeing, sneaking around, and there's a war basically going down. It's so unsettled. And what happens is that the outside people basically give 4's mom, who's now the leader, a gas where, I said they were given to kids where they would forget who they were. They were going to gas the whole city so that everyone forgot who they were. This is about to happen, but Triss and 4 stop it, and they stop it, and then they send the helicopter with bombs back to the man, and then he gets destroyed. And this is the middle and end of movie 3. basically what's supposed to happen is that Triss is supposed to go back to this guy, and basically she ends up sacrificing herself. You hear me? At the end of this entire series, Triss is actually dies. The whole series, she ends up dead, and she self-sacrifices herself so that everyone else can basically live. We never got that, and the reason I was doing some research because I was like, I'm pretty sure they never finished that series, but then there were 3 movies, and I was like, oh, maybe they did. Maybe they did. Maybe they did. No, they did not. Get this. So apparently, after the first few movies, the reviews were by film critics was getting lower and lower. But I gotta say, I watched them and I freaking love them, like right now. But I gotta remember this. They are coming right after the Hunger Games series. People are probably oversaturated with YA material, so that happened. Ratings kept dropping. They were like 50% or 60% for Divergent, then 25 for Insurgent, then like 11 for Allegiant. Now, the ratings were so bad that they didn't get, I think, the funding for the 4th film. So instead, they were going to try and convert it to a TV movie. A TV movie. You heard me right. A TV movie. And the cast, no one knew about this, except they found out when the public found out. And then they were interviewed, and everyone was kind of like, that's not my contract. I probably am going to bounce out. Because everyone was becoming famous. Miles Teller was becoming famous. Ansel Elgort was becoming famous. Shailene Woodley was kind of already famous, but became more, right, because of The Fault of Our Stars as well. So they never did it. So the last movie for the Divergent series literally ends with not really an ending. It's literally like Triss standing on the side of a wall, and then you see like the villain right next to her because he's like a hologram. So that's a bummer. Really bummer. I wish there was another one. If you read the books, let me know. Like, if you remember the difference between the movies and the books. But like, I'm not lying. Like in the movies, the people that die, like they switch a lot of things up. People kill people in the movies that don't kill people in the books. Like the way Kate Winslet character dies isn't in the movie. It's by Forrest's mom, like the other leader. But in like the book, it's either Triss or someone else that kills her. Like, it's a lot of that stuff. Also, apparently, there's like a lot more fights between the love couple, and I just thought it was interesting. Like, I read the Hunger Games, and I thought it was like pretty accurate. I would probably need to read it again. But this apparently was just like really off. It works, but it was just different apparently, which I was just like, I don't know how that was received. Apparently not well. So yeah, definitely check it out. It was so cool because it gave me Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you ever saw that film, you know the guy who has all 4 elements has to master them and then defeat the Fire Lord. That's what I loved, because like the first movie, it's like you have to choose your specialty and then you have to learn it, and it's so dope to see her become this badass warrior, and it's all about like how she's different and how she uses that to her success. Yeah, but like the other 2 movies are good too. They're actually pretty entertaining. I won't lie. She cuts her hair in the second movie. Looks phenomenal. But yeah, I just kind of want to give you a spew because I was like, oh yeah, whatever happened to the last movie, and that's what happened. They literally were going to do a TV movie. They didn't. And then, you know, I think they lost funding. So it's such a bummer. Such a bummer. But yeah. Okay. Give this video a like, subscribe, join our membership, do all the goods. Let me know if you have any recommendations for other types of videos and anything, but I love you. Be kind, be good to others, be weird, be your authentic self, and have a lovely